a blended affair, on the air right now. Here's your host, Meow.
Welcome back to Swirl, your A through Z, covering the LGBT, LMNOP, and everyone in between show. I'm Meow, your host. You can find us all the time with a ton more content at swirlradio.com. And like I was saying before the break, we have an event coming up for future gay dads. So if you're interested in hearing more or learning more, you can head to pacificfertilitycenter.com/tango and reserve your spot today. So in the news recently, President Obama made headlines which included the LGBTQ community in his proposal for immigration reform. And we were just talking before the break in our news that there's a bill being introduced that would allow gay and lesbian couples to sponsor their foreign partners for residency here in the United States. So it sounds like an amazing step forward and a lot of potential, but what gay binational couples have faced thus far is extremely heartbreaking. So here to discuss the struggles of this discrimination is Machu Latorre, who produced the film Entry Denied. Machu, welcome to Swirl.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, and thank you for having me.
I hope your name is it. I just said it the way that I wanted to say it, but I said it right?
You did.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So just give us a quick synopsis of the film. Let us know what it's about.
Sure. So Entry Denied is a short documentary about the struggles faced by gay and lesbian Americans who are in relationships with foreign citizens. The documentary follows three different couples, a lesbian couple and two gay couples, boy couples, that are facing the hardship and the hard choices of having to choose between staying in this country, in the United States, or having to move abroad with their partner because they don't have the ability to stay here legally with their partners.
Now, I know that you're from Spain, and so I wonder if your own personal story or if the immigration policies here in the United States has personally affected you.
Yes, it has in a way. And when I started working on this documentary, I was experiencing the hardship to some extent of this situation, and so I thought it would be interesting to write a story about the topic, thinking that maybe I was the only one going through it. So to my surprise, as I did a little research, I came across this organization back then called Lesbian and Gay Immigration Rights Task Force, which is now, Immigration Equality and Out for Immigration. And they invited me to attend one of their support meetings, and I was really taken away by the amount of people that were there sharing the stories. And so I decided that it was probably best to do a documentary as opposed to a narrative, which is what I thought this film was going to be about.
Yeah. So there's a feature of couples who's on the documentary, obviously, who went through horrible ordeals and separation and, heartbreak. But let's talk about the gay couple that were denied entry to the country, or they had been discriminated against because of their HIV status. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. So the couple that you're referring to is Meow and Hurt is the name of the two gentlemen, and their story is probably the most hardship in this documentary. And I think out of the many stories I've heard over the years that I've been working on this film, it is still today one of the most amazing stories. They have now been together, I think it's 31 years, which, it can be said about many couples, gay or straight. So the fact that they actually stayed together through this entire ordeal is pretty outstanding. But their situation touch on a lot of the different discriminations that the immigration law has have over the years. In their particular case, Geert, who is from Holland, came or tried to come to visit Meow, his partner, in the 70s, and back then he was rejected entry because the U.S. Embassy in Amsterdam suspected that he had a relationship with another man. So his entry, even as a student, as a visitor, was denied because when he was asked to provide supporting documentation that he was actually going to come to visit someone in the United States, he provided a postcard that he had been he received from Meow, from the American citizen, in which that mentioned, I think at the end of the postcard it said, "With love, Meow." And so that gave the embassy a small indication that, this might be a homosexual relationship. And the U.S. Embassy went to the extent of calling Geert's mom in Holland to say, "I just wanted to let you know from a parent to a parent that your son might be having a homosexual relationship."
Oh, my gosh.
And so, yeah, and then that part unfortunately didn't make it to the documentary because we had to shorten their story. But I think it is really a reflection of how long these laws have been in the books. And back then, they were very explicit around the exclusion of homosexuals, regardless of the HIV status. It was homosexuals were excluded, were in the list of exclusions to entry of the United States. At some point, those exclusions went away, but the HIV exclusion remained in the law and the books until just 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And so, so Geert was able to come to the United States at some point as a student, so independently. He later applied again and did not provide any letters from Meow, so he wouldn't be excluded from entry. And then him and Meow started living together, and at some point it was time for him to apply for a visa, and that's when he was offered a green card, and that's when he was rejected based on his HIV status. So.
Do you know of any couples who, maybe someone was deported and they had to separate indefinitely?
I have none of the three. None of the three couples in the documentary that made the cut to the documentary were deported. I think the story that reflects that sort of case is John and Sean. They're the couple who live in Southern California. John is from the UK, and he was stopped at one. So he will come to visit John every so often with the tourist visa, and so he was able to stay here for 3 months at a time. And in one of his entries, he was told that they suspected that he was trying to stay here permanently because he had been coming so often to visit his partner, and they told him that he was not allowed to come back anymore. So once he left, he wouldn't be able to come back. And that ended up they were able to get around that, and he was then later able to come back to the United States. But every time he will come back, we'll be facing the deportation. But there was one couple that didn't make it to the documentary, unfortunately, for where there was a lesbian couple, and the foreign part of the couple was from Zimbabwe, where the situation is very.
It's very as we know, a lot of countries or parts of Africa are not very well. LGBT people face harsh treatment in those countries, so I recognize that. We're running out of time, Machu, so I just wanted to make sure that our listeners were able to find information about the film, view it, or support it. Where can they do that?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Michelle. The documentary website is www.entrydeniedmovie.com. And we are in the process of completing distribution, and we'll be making the film available for purchase. But at the moment, we are still showing the film in various film festivals, and that will probably conclude in the summer. So on the website,
Awesome.
we have a section where the film can be viewed in the upcoming showing.
Great.
So.
Well, Machu, thank you so much for joining us here on Swirl, and thank you for your work in bringing exposure to the inequality that LGBTQ binational couples face here in this country. Machu Latorre, everyone, she's the filmmaker of Entry Denied, and we'll also post that information up on Swirl. But for now, we have to take a quick break.